My name's Amin. I'm the executive director of a online publishing company, and I give Gusto a 5 out of 5. My company was a true startup. When we started, it was just me. And as we started hiring new employees and contractors, I started to learn that running a startup is more than just making products. There's a lot of stuff on the back end. Things like filling out new hire paperwork and submitting quarterly payroll to the state and sending out W-2s and 1099s at the end of the year. And quite honestly, that's stuff that I don't know how to do and I didn't want to do. It wasn't a good use of my time. And so I actually didn't switch from any product. In fact, it was the first product that I used because I thought to myself, I can either do this by myself or find a service to do it for me. And so we've been using it for about 4 years now, from the point in time when it was just me to now when we have, almost 15 employees. I chose Gusto for a number of reasons. The first was the fact that it was really easy to use. Doing payroll and all of the things associated with it, including submitting things like W-2s and 1099s, communicating with the state around what our payroll was on a quarterly basis, those were things that were very difficult for me and things that I didn't want to do. Gusto was extraordinarily simple. It was literally as easy as putting in the information of my employees, and basically that's it. Other than that, every month and every quarter, Gusto does the work for me. It was just so simple to use. That was probably the first reason. I'd say the second reason why I chose Gusto is because of the fact that it was actually really inexpensive. When I thought about the amount it would cost for me to hire an accountant to do this if I were to do it by myself, and the cost it was for Gusto, I felt like it was really reasonable. And finally, the reason why I picked Gusto is because of the team behind Gusto. I know that Gusto started as a venture backed organization in the Bay Area. I believe in their leadership. And the reason why is, we've had Gusto now for about 4 years, and I've seen the evolution of the product and how it's consistently getting better month after month after month. So I know that this product is going to continue to improve and begin to provide features that, while I may not need now, I'm sure I might need in the future. Gusto was really easy to onboard and integrate into my business. For starters, it just required me to put in some information about my business, including, tax ID number and things like that. After that, I had to invite some of my employees and contractors onto the service. And it was really simple. Basically, I put in their information and then they get an email from Gusto wherein they then put in their own personal information, things like their dependents and things like that. After that, Gusto really did the rest. So on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis, we go in and submit our payroll information, submit hours, so on and so forth. We also put in our vacation policy, as we have as our own company, and really the rest is history. Um, it's actually so simple, and it was just so easy to use that even thinking about how easy it is, I wish I were able to say it was more complicated. It was as simple as that. If you're considering Gusto, I'd recommend you think about a couple of things. The first is just know that it is a long term commitment. The way that Gusto works, or at least the way it works for me, is we pay per month per employee. So if you have a lot of employees, it may end up costing a little bit more. And so that's something that you have to be aware of because it is, I think, a long term investment. The second thing I would consider is um, once you do start Gusto, just take a moment to learn all of the elements that Gusto actually does for you. For example, when I started, I didn't know that Gusto actually files something called a new hire report with the state. So, for example, we hired a intern in the state of California, and they filed a new hire report, and I didn't even know that. Well, it turns out if you hire an employee in the state of California, you actually end up having to pay taxes in the state of California too. And that wasn't something I knew. And we probably didn't even need to submit that new hire report. That was kind of over and beyond what we even needed Gusto to do. So if I would have started Gusto, and if you're starting Gusto, what I'd recommend is number one, be mindful of the long term investment that you'll be making. And number two, just be mindful of all of the work that Gusto actually does behind the scenes that you may not even be aware of.